Hey, Julie Gunlock, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure as always. And boy, there's a lot of news from the nanny state to talk about this week. But let's start with your piece at Acculturated, Celebrity Fear Mongers. And then we're going to talk a little bit about snowflakes, if you don't mind.
Oh,
but,
yes, let's do.
Maybe these celebrity fear mongers actually are one of those factors that help create the blizzard of precious snowflakes that we are seeing these days. You think there's something to that?
Yeah, I wrote about it in Acculturated, but I'd like to cite another article that was written this week. I think it was in the Washington Post, talking about how we are creating. Actually, I think Cameron forwarded me this article about how we are creating the next generation of food nannies. And this writer kind of goes through how she's been lectured by her own children, and she hears kids talking like, you shouldn't eat sugar and you shouldn't eat candy and you shouldn't eat this stuff. And it's gone from, hey, it's good for kids to have sort of an appreciation for healthy food, to sort of this lecturing and everything's bad. It's sort of like an orthorexia, that they are so wed to this, one kind of eating, that they sort of lecture people. And so this writer again talked about how we are generating the next, the next generation of food nannies. And the piece that I wrote in Acculturated, they're part of that movement. These food nannies, these celebrity moms who have loads of money, and nannies and personal shoppers and chefs, and they have no sort of understanding of what the real world is, what real moms go through. And so again, it was another one of my articles where I warn women to not get their health and wellness advice or diet advice from celebrity moms. They are often wrong on. They're almost always wrong on these issues, and so I just sort of cataloged a few of those examples.
And again, I mean, a lot of this is people who are freaking out about chemicals. You say another mom blogger named Robin O'Brien warns 80% of the foods that she puts foods in quotation marks, right? 80% of the foods on supermarket shelves today didn't exist 100 years ago.
Right, and
you couldn't get Cocoa Puffs 100 years ago.
Yeah,
Julie Gunlock.
she actually puts that on her Facebook page. She's a very popular mom blogger. She's turned her own child's very serious. I'm not arguing that. Her child has a very serious food allergy and got quite sick. But she turned that into a whole movement. And one person's food allergy does not sort of indict the entire food industry, but it does for this mom. So she put on her Facebook page, that quote that you just said about, 80% of the products not being in the grocery store. And I read that and I'm like, and it was awful. I mean, I'm so glad that grocery stores offer a lot more things. I mean, it's just this weird idea that fewer things in the grocery store was better. I mean, she's forgetting that, other things weren't sold at the grocery store, like medicines, condoms. There's a lot of things that weren't on grocery store shelves. Soda, Diet Coke. Okay, there's like a lot of things, painkillers, that were not on grocery store shelves 100 years ago, and it was terrible. And so I talked about what life was like.
I think actually, I think Coke was around 100 years ago.
Okay, but Diet Coke was not.
I think it was.
Diet Coke
You're right,
was not.
Diet Coke was not.
And that's
Tab
all I care about.
Was not.
That's all I care about.
Slim Jims.
Right? No.
No, there was a lot of
Yeah.
there was a lot of stuff. You're right. A lot of stuff is different, and a lot of stuff has changed. And by the way, I think that if you could go back in time, even before Baby Hitler, just go back 100 years to an. I'm not even sure how old Baby Hitler would have been in 1915, and I don't really care. Anyway, and you would just talk to the average man or woman in 1915 and say, hey, come forward 100 years into the future.
Yeah.
We'll let you look around for an hour. You tell me where you want to live, right? You get
tell
to
me
walk
if you
around.
want to go back.
We'll take you to Wegmans.
Right.
We'll take you, right. And just, spend an hour.
Right.
And then at the end of that hour, you ask that gentleman or you ask that lady, okay, but by the way, make sure you look at the ingredients.
Right.
All right. Make sure you look at the ingredients in these food labels. Where do you think they would choose?
I'd like to send
live,
Robin O'Brien back to 1915. I think she would really get an education. I also talked about how average life expectancy was 54. I mean, I'm not going to give my age, but I'm awfully close. Okay, and I'm not happy about that. I mean, that's the current age of. I think I mentioned some people: Toby Keith, Tom Cruise. I mean, these are people we kind of think of as young. And so that was the average life expectancy. Women regularly died in childbirth, and losing teeth was common, okay? Children died of common diseases now that we vaccinate against. I'm sure she's against that too. So, these were not great times. So suggesting that we should go back 100 years to and live in a way and sort of shop in a way that people did 100 years ago is just absurd. But again, I call these people Downton Abbey fans. They're sort of the masterpiece theater addicts, who see all creatures great and small, or Downton Abbey, or upstairs, downstairs, and they sort of forget, or they have that's their understanding of history. They don't really understand history and understand how truly grueling it was for the average person.
As Mr. Green Acres, I can tell you, yeah, it is. It's really, really hard work to actually try to grow your own food. And look, I'm all in favor of eating organic, and I'm all in favor of eating simply. I try to do that myself, but stop with your thumbs down. But I still eat at McDonald's. I had a cheeseburger pizza from the local pizza shop last week, and I'm not apologizing for that either. And I don't know if the pork was locally sourced pork. I refuse to let that preoccupy 80% or more of my life. Again, try to eat well, try to eat healthy, but good gravy. I mean, don't we have? Julie, I just look around the world today and I just say, don't you, food nannies, have more important things to do than to scold other people about their diets?
Yeah, these people, food nannies, orthorexics, people who are so caught up in this, they are one thing. They all have one word that can describe them, and that is they are bores. They are so boring. I mean, they're just so obsessed with this one thing. And so, look, I try to write to remind people that, big multisyllabic words in the ingredient list aren't put there to freak you out. Okay, so azodicarbonamide, right? A common preservative that's put in bread. And the reason it's put in there is not to generate hysterics. Okay, the reason it's used is it extends the shelf life of bread. I buy bread at the store. I don't know how long it's been on the shelf, probably a couple days. Then I take it home and it sits in a cabinet above my refrigerator for about a week, and it doesn't go moldy. And I'm thrilled because I have a tiny freezer. And I don't want, and then I have a freezer downstairs, but I don't have to run downstairs for 2 slices of bread every morning. So I like that they add a tiny amount of this food preservative. The reason it's called preservative is it's the word preserve. It makes your food last longer. And there's all sorts of preservatives out there that sort of help.
Julie,
and they're not poisoning you. And it's cheaper. Food is cheaper.
Look, far be it from me to suggest that you need to go spend time in the kitchen. But isn't that really what?
Careful. It's triggering.
The orthorexics? I know, right? Sorry. We need a bell
Cam?
when I accidentally trigger.
Yeah. Are you saying I belong in the kitchen?
I want a bell now for every microaggression that I engage in.
I feel like
anyway,
you're suggesting I belong in the kitchen. Go on.
Well, no. Let me go on now before you accuse me of rampant sexism. Isn't that what they would have you do?
Yes.
Right? Julie, why are you not baking your own bread? Why are you worried about the diaxo blah, 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 blah? Because you should be, it only takes, an hour and a half out of your day to bake a loaf of bread, right?
Because I have the
add in churning your own butter, and it's like 2.5 hours. But you turn on the Hulu and you watch while you're churning your butter and you're baking your bread.
That's right. I have The Walking Dead to watch. I don't have time to bake bread. I have so much stuff to do.
You just do it. You put the laptop on there on the kitchen counter, and you knead and you roll it all out while you're watching The Walking Dead. You just need to multitask better, Julie. Is what I'm saying.
I could mother harder, do it better, harder, better. I could. Yes, you're absolutely right, and that is true. It's really interesting what you bring up, because there actually has been some talk about how it's sort of. I don't want to get into this whole other area, but that's a whole other show. But, it's a little bit anti-woman to suggest that, and sort of anti sort of common sense to suggest that, like, if you really want to be a good mom, and it never stops. Keep in mind, it never stops. It's not just baking your own bread. You then have to grow your own wheat. Okay, you have to grind your own wheat. I mean, it can go. Some of these people go. It just never ends. You can't even buy the flour at the store. You've got to build. You got to grind your own wheat. You got to grow it. It goes on and on. You can never satisfy.
So this is
people.
actually this is a perfect segue to the rampant snowflakeism that we're seeing on college campuses, because again, it's never enough, right?
Right.
It's always, there is always someone more pure than you who is constantly critiquing and criticizing, because that's part of what the movement is about, right? Rejecting the impure. And so you're left with only those true believers who remain. And in the meantime, it's so much fun to cast people out. It's so much fun to destroy people's lives. I mean, it's fun to gain power. And so we see this in the foodie movement. We see this in every movement now here, but including on the campus, where we have seen the shrieking snowflakes, as I call it, this week, decide that they will have no more unsafe spaces. That college is not is supposed to be a place where you are taught. College is a place for these students, apparently, to teach their uneducated professors and presidents and alumni.
And this, I will tell you, this all reminds me. It's very reminiscent of Mao's Red Guard. These were young students that decided to punish their professors for not being radical enough. They put dunce hats on them. They often wrapped them up in some sort of clothing, and they would parade them, like chain them and parade them through the streets. And it was very, very young Chinese children that were doing this. This was, obviously during the Great Revolution, Mao's Great Revolution, and it was approved by Mao. He approved of this behavior, and they were all devoted to Mao. And so I see this. I saw that girl screaming at that Yale professor. It was so uncomfortable to me. But I could imagine that if you get these people ginned up enough, you'll see that kind of behavior. I mean, physical abuse. It was really rattling to me. How she screamed in his face and used that language. To me, it reminded me a lot of the Red Guard. I hate to be dramatic, but it really, to me, it seemed like history repeating itself.
I mean, it might be overly dramatic, but I think that there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, I think we are seeing that sort of revolutionary impulse, and it doesn't mean that we're talking about explicit Marxists here or people who she might not even know who Mao is. Right?
I bet she doesn't.
But I mean, honestly, I know it's Yale, but whatever. Is he the General Mao's chicken? Anyway.
Right.
What we have seen, I think, in these revolutionary movements, going back to the French Revolution, I just read a book about the French Terror, and now I'm, for whatever reason, reading a biography of Pol Pot. So, you want to talk about communism, we can talk about the Khmer Rouge. I know, weird, huh? So we can,
are super
we can talk
fun.
about how the Khmer Rouge.
At a party.
Oh, stop it! I wrote a funny book. I don't have to read funny books.
Right. I don't know how you did.
It's a party. I don't know. I guess you'll have to read it and review it then, Ms. Gunlock. Anywho, there is this sort of thing that is seen, I think, throughout these revolutionary movements, whether you're talking about political revolutions, cultural revolutions, large scale, small scale. And one of it is that sort of you've got to attack the authority, right? The existing authority. That's who you're rebelling against. Yeah. These college students at Yale and at Missouri, they weren't protesting the state legislature. They weren't even protesting the president of the university. They were going after the weakest target that they thought that they could find. And in both cases, apparently they were right, because at Yale, the president sat down with these students and actually apologized to them for this hurtful email. And again, this is such a stupid thing. The email said Yale University should not be telling you college students how to dress on Halloween.
And the
grown
email was
men and women,
correct.
right?
The email was correct. I mean,
I know.
let's also not
I
forget
know.
they apologized to these students for acting completely inappropriate. That girl should have been kicked out. You should not be allowed to talk to a professor like that. You should not. I mean, I thought she was going to hit him. It was really frightening. And then they apologize to the students for nothing. It really is astonishing to me. It's dangerous. And again, the left, and let's be clear, the left is very bad at policing itself. It's very bad at sort of tamping down these kinds of movements. And again, we see how bad they are when you have apologies made and resignations, and nobody stands up. Nobody tells these students what they have waiting for them when they face real life. They are so protected right now, as you said, snowflakes. They are doing such a disservice to these kids, to these young adults.
I absolutely. Listen, unfortunately, I know we're running long on this segment. I appreciate you coming in the studio. Both of us clearly passionate about this topic. I will just leave you with this thought, Julie. You ready for this?
I am.
Education Secretary Mike Rowe.
Can't wait.
Mr. Dirty Jobs. Put him in charge of the education department.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Sorry, I thought you were going to say some apology from the current education secretary. That's a great idea.
No.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
indeed.
right?
Yes.
All right. Tough times. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. Julie Gunlock, she's with the Independent Women's Forum. And Julie, thank you again for coming on the program today.
Thanks for having me.